Going to start with you, naughty one. I want to start first with Benjamin Leshoro out at the convention center. Benji, I've been listening to you all morning, and just refresh for us why this title race is so important for the continent's football.
Good morning, Xoli. Yes, we are coming to you from the Sandton Convention Center. As I walked through the corridors here just now when I arrived, I saw Patrice Motsepe's face on a big banner with the mantra, building African football up to be the best in the world. And that's precisely speaking to your question to me, because African leaders have made it clear that what they want is African football to be able to compete with the best in the world, not just be competing amongst ourselves. And I'm talking about maybe the African football, the Africa Cup of Nations, but also at World Cup level, because we know the 2026 World Cup will have increased spots for African nations from 5 to either 9 or 10. So they've made it very clear that going to that World Cup is about competing and not just making up the numbers. So it's important. And Patrice Motsepe here, I understand he'll be revealing a 10-point action plan to make sure that that happens. But not only at the Men's World Cup, that plan surely will have among the top points women's football on the continent. And we've seen the likes of Banyana going to the World Cup in France, but they couldn't really get past the group stages. The likes of the USA, Sweden, England are always the nations that are top in women's football. So that has to increase, but also the financial aspect on it. The main thing that made SAFA endorse Patrice Motsepe as their candidate to run for this election is because he's a shrewd businessman and he knows the finances, and that's exactly why they wanted him up there, because the current CAF President Ahmad and his predecessor Issa Hayatu were in trouble at some point because of the finances and the maladministration of funds and all of that. So it is extremely important for Patrice Motsepe to touch on those particular points.
Benji, let's pause there for the moment and let me bring it into Studio Pillar. Benji speaks about Patrice Motsepe being a shrewd businessman and him being a world-celebrated businessman. It makes him a strong contender, but also talking to the mantra or his vision for African football. Benji talking about a billboard that's written, building African football to compete with the best in the world. Talk to us first about the strong contenders that Motsepe is up against.
Well, Xoli, it's a formidable trio that he's up against. Guys like Ahmed Yahya from Mauritania, Jacques Anouma from the Ivorian Football Association, and Senghor from Senegal. So those three are going to be his main competitors. There's also an issue, a lingering issue with the current CAF president in Ahmad, whose suspension was revoked by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So those are some of the issues that are also going to be coming up in the build-up to this election.
So could the current president still be in the race?
He could still well be, because he took his case to appeal in terms of being eligible to stand for another term for CAF presidency. So those are some of the elements that are still going to be coming up in the build-up to this Elective Congress. But he's up against some really stiff competition. The current Football Association president in Senegal, he has a lot of administrative experience. Jacques Anouma from the Ivorian Football Association was the president from 2002 until 2011. So that is a lot of experience. And of course, Ahmed Yahya from Mauritania, who's also holds a lot of administrative experience. I think Patrice will have to, and he's been garnering a lot of support from not only the SADC region, but also in North Africa to try and lobby the votes as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the financial aspect alone will be strong enough for him to be elected as the next CAF president. He'll have to have a lot of other support in terms of the politics of football is concerned.
Yeah. Benji, I listened to you in the morning talking about how, for example, Nigeria, they are some of the nations that are behind Patrice Motsepe, or at least have expressed support for him. In the country, we know that the president of SAFA, Denny Jordan, has almost been at the forefront of this campaign for Patrice Motsepe. But when it comes down to it, apparently that's where the dirty tricks happen. So could he be self-assured right now that he's got this in the bag?
Not at all. Not by any stretch of imagination, Xoli. It is by no means in the bag as yet. I have heard other journalists from West Africa saying Patrice looks to have already secured about 35 votes of the 54 member associations. But what I can tell you, Xoli, is that as much as COSAFA has assured Patrice, COSAFA is the Council of African Football Associations, of Southern African Football Associations here in the SADC region. They have assured Patrice of their vote. But it might not happen like that because they don't have to. They don't vote as a block. They vote as each association. So that means ZIFA, the Zimbabwean Football Association, will be voting alone. The President Felton Kamambo. And Andrew Kamanga of Zambia will be voting alone. Denny Jordan will be voting alone. They will not be voting as a bloc as COSAFA. And that has backfired before for Denny Jordan when he was vying for a spot for an Anglophone president at the FIFA Council a couple of years ago. I think it was 2018, September 2018. COSAFA did promise him their vote, but when it came down to the day, they voted for Walter Nyamilandu of Malawi. And the Malawian is now the one who is sitting at the top table of football and not Denny Jordan. And that's because he put all his eggs in the COSAFA basket saying they will vote for him. It hasn't happened like that in the past.
Right, Benji, let's pause there for a second, and when we return, because I want to continue this discussion, we are going to look at what potentially could Patrice Motsepe offer for African football. We sit, me, a person like me who's not a football fundi, and all I want to see during a FIFA World Cup are African nations there, but they are the first to crash out. So we're going to look at why this is and whether this could be turned around. This is Newsfeed, the AM edition. Someone who doesn't generally follow football, all I want to see during the FIFA World Cup, and that's when I become a spectator, I want to see whether it be South Africa or any other African nation that is going to stay the course and possibly crash out only at the semi-finals. Yes. But it rarely happens.
I think one of the big points that Patrice Motsepe is likely to be presenting in his manifesto is stability of African football. We've seen in the past how corrupt deals have been done in terms of whether it's marketing, it's sponsorship, it's broadcast rights deals that have been very corrupt. Benjamin mentioned the fact that Ahmad had been suspended or banned by FIFA for 5 years, for a period of 5 years. His predecessor, Issa Hayatou, was also very much controversial. So there really needs to be some sort of stability in terms of African football administration is concerned. But also, you also touch on a very important point in terms of how competitive African teams are in the global stage of football.
And before you move on to there's an element you touch on, and it's about corruption.
Yes.
I think we can all remember the arrests of FIFA officials all around the world.
Yes.
And there was reticence among others within the continent who simply could not fly anymore, who feared flying because they could potentially be arrested by the FBI. That's how much corruption has been in football until Gianni Infantino came in as president. As to how clean it is, that matter, I suppose, that's still up in the air. We will see when his term comes up for review. But continue on the administrative side of things.
And it's important, Xoli, because when you look at corruption and you look at global football and how that sort of element has plagued global football, a lot of people will always say that one of the most corrupt continents in terms of football administration is Africa. And I think that is what Patrice Motsepe will probably likely harp on in terms of getting a stable base for African football administration. We've seen now, currently, the African football competitions aren't being broadcasted on the various broadcasting platforms throughout the continent. And that's because the rights deal fell apart. There was a lot of unscrupulous dealings that were happening in terms of getting African football competitions out to the masses throughout the continent. And that's going to be one of the important things that probably Dr. Patrice Motsepe is going to be touching on in terms of getting a stable base for African football administration.
Sure. Benji, let's wrap it up with you. Might Patrice Motsepe's billionaire status be potentially one of the tickets that he runs on to say, I don't have reason to want to steal money, whether it be through broadcast rights. All I'm interested in is cleaning up the issue of administration in football on the continent so that we can produce stars on the field of play. And whilst you edit, tell us what time we can expect to hear from Patrice Motsepe.
Well, that certainly could be one of his tickets, Xoli, to say, okay, Patrice Motsepe is a billionaire already, and a lot of the other presidents that have come through before were not, and maybe it is that has made their status questioned in the top post, and Patrice will be looking to run certain things the way he knows as a businessman and get the financial side of things up and running. We know from his presidency at Mamelodi Sundowns, Patrice has not benefited much from Mamelodi Sundowns in as far as the finances are concerned. Although Mamelodi Sundowns has been very successful over the years, Patrice, a trophy is won by the team, and a large chunk of that money is shared among the players, or even all of it is shared among the players. So that could be his ticket. But it's a bit concerning to me, Xoli, and I've been saying this all morning, that it's only 15 days to the election itself, and Patrice Motsepe is only speaking for the first time in South Africa today. He might have lobbied throughout the continent and even went to the Club World Cup recently, but he has not said anything to his own media, and perhaps he could have used the media more than he has. The South African media could have maybe carried his agenda a lot more than he made use of it. And it's not for lack of trying, because we have tried to speak to him on several occasions. But perhaps it's a bit disappointing. Maybe it might be his weak point, because his opponents started a long time ago. Their campaigns have long been running, and everyone has known what they're all about. And the fact that they know what it takes to win elections on the football front here in Africa because they are administrators. Patrice Motsepe is the president of Mamelodi Sundowns. That does not make him a front runner when it comes to running an FA or the Confederation of African Football, because he has not even ran his own football association. So we'll be hearing what the 10-point action plan is. We are scheduled for 11 o'clock start here. That's tentative, of course. We know that things can change, but at the moment, the time that is penciled in is 11 o'clock for Patrice Motsepe to tell us exactly what he stands for and what he will be doing for African football should he be elected to the top post.
All right, Benji, on that point about Patrice Motsepe perhaps not using the media enough in the country, let me open my platform here and say, Mr. Motsepe, you know, I have a Sunday show after Thursday. You might want to come visit me. That could be a start. We shall see where things go from there on. Gentlemen, my thanks to you both. Philasande Sixaba in studio with me. He's our sports reporter, and Benji Leshoro coming to us live from Sentin, our sports anchor.